What's up, gamers? Koobs here. I recently made a Let's Make an Invader video and got quite a few views and some thumbs up and even a comment that said, "Keep going, bro." So I figured, yeah, I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna continue to make this Invader, and why not just share some of the things that I do along the way, little tips that might be helpful for putting together an Invader. This Invader specifically is a level 25 character with +3 weapons, but many of these tips are applicable to invaders of all level ranges. So let's go for a little stroll through Jarburg, pick some flowers, and just sit back and enjoy. Thanks for being here. So I come down to Jarburg to gather Poison Bloom. There might be better places to farm Poison Bloom, but I like to come down to Jarburg. It's quite peaceful. And I use the Poison Bloom typically to make Poison Bone daggers. Now, you can get the Bone Peddler's Bell Bearing from the Bell Bearing Hunter at the War Master's Shack in Limgrave. You can purchase Thin Beast Bones for 150 runes, and you need 2 Thin Beast Bones and 1 Poison Bloom in order to craft Poison Bone daggers. You get 5 for 2 bones and 1 Poison Bloom, so that would be 300 runes. Now you can also go to Caelid and visit the merchant, and you can pick them up for 150 runes apiece, but you don't need the crafting materials. So what I'll often do is I'll load up on the purchasable Poison Bone daggers, and then I will keep crafting materials on my character so that if I'm in the middle of an invasion and I need to craft more, then I have the materials to do so. Now in the background here, I do not recommend you take on this challenge unless you are a complete masochist like myself. These Bell-Bearing Hunters, they cheat. They don't fight fair, they have wall hacks, they look at your controller. They're just dirty cheaters. This probably took me 20 attempts to beat this guy, the one that's in Altus Plateau. He is going to drop the Medicine Peddler's Bell Bearing, which is going to give us access to the boluses that you can purchase. So the Poison Bolus, the Blood Bolus, the Sleep Bolus, and the Frost Bolus. Now, I load up on the Stanching Boluses, which are for the bleed effect, because players like to use bleed quite often. So I wanted to come out here and take out this boss so that I would have access to that consumable, because with a low-level invader, I might come up against some pretty high-level phantoms, and it's nice to have something in your back pocket to make sure that you don't get bled out really quickly. Again, I don't advocate for coming out here and taking on this boss as a low-level invader. I'm not saying that you have to do this, but if you did try to or wanted to attempt to, here's the strategy that I used. I have Chilling Mist on my Morning Star, and I'm also using the Axe Talisman to buff my charge attacks, as well as the Wondrous Physic that boosts my charge attacks. And so at the beginning there, you could see I kind of staggered him pretty quickly. I switched over to a Fire Misery Cord to do the critical damage, as well as take away the Frost effect, because I was going to try to proc Frost a second time. Didn't really work out for me, but I was still able to take him on with the Serpent Arrows and some Holy Arrows and some Volcano Pots. And so yeah, that's a little, technique to how you could maybe take on that boss yourself if you're trying to get those boluses as well. Now here we're taking on the Putrid Avatar at the Minor Erd Tree in Caelid. Volcano Pots are super effective against these bosses, not just this one in particular, but all of the Erd Tree avatars. It's just a really good way to take them on. I've also got my trusty companion, Stormhawk Dean. The Lance Between, it's a hostile environment, and it's nice to have a friend sometimes. So I like having Dean by my side to help me take on some of the challenges that I've been up against. And again, find yourself a friend. I chose Stormhawk Dean because it's a low FP cost to summon, and I think it's only 47 FP. And with a low level invader, I'm not investing into my mind stat, so that's super helpful. Here I'm showing where you can pick up the Carrion Retaliation Ash of War, just in case you're not already familiar. You can start from Ronnie's Rise, and then just take this little route down here, and we're going to go talk to Pidia, who is like the kind of like a servant of the Carrion Manor, although I think that there's a little bit more to his character. But that's not really what we're here to discuss at the moment. But he sells a larval tier. There's also a cookbook there, and then you have the Carrion Retaliation Ash of War. There's also the Ripple Blade. I thought it was really interesting that this is classified as an axe, but in the description it says that it's a sword. I thought that was kind of cool. So Carrion Retaliation is really great Ash of War to have on your character if you've got maybe a shield or two that you can slap this onto. I typically like to use at least one of the crest shields. So right now I'm using the Inverted Hawk crest shield. And then I'll also carry a lighter shield with me. So something like a buckler, maybe the Red Thorn round shield. I think there's one called the Wooden Scripture shield. There's also the Rickety shield, which is even lighter than all of those. And that just gives you some options when it comes to managing your equipment load. But this is just really useful tool to have in your pocket as an invader. Sometimes people don't respect the sheer ability that it has at taking out wizards who are just kind of careless with their move spam. So in the background you can kind of see some of the invasion clips of when I'm able to dish out some punishment with Carrion Retaliation, and that's always a lot of fun. Here the host has decided that they didn't want any of that smoke. So they did what some hosts do sometimes and just closed their game out. I don't blame them for that. It's their game. You can choose to interact with it as they please. But here, Reduvia spam, it's like, hey man, stop hitting yourself. It also has other uses. Parrying moon veils, or just parrying blows in general. Really good thing to get used to or try to get better at as an invader is learning how to parry. There's a number of different parries in the game. Some people might like Golden Parry. It's got, I think, the most parry frames out of all of the parry abilities. But I really like Carrion Retaliation personally. Now, I did want to show the Top's Barrier Ash of War. I don't have any clips of actually putting it to use. But one of the distinctions between Carrion Retaliation and Top's Barrier is that Top's Barrier costs 0 FP, which means that if somebody's spamming magic at you, you can continue to deflect it or dispel the magic so that you don't take any damage. So that's pretty useful as a tool for an invader. So I like to have this Ash of War with me. So you want to get the Glintstone Key from Raya Lucaria Academy, give it to our friend Tops, and then he's going to go on his journey, and then you want to go to the Site of Grace. You want to rest and pass time. If you just rest and go back to the church, this little beetle won't be there just yet. You need to pass time first, but then you can go kill that little scarab beetle, and you can get Top's Barrier, the Ash of War. I also wanted to get the Erudition Gesture from doing the beginning of Top's quests, because that's going to allow us to use the converted tower in Liurnia to get a memory stone. I didn't want to leave out the magic users, and again, these tips are hopefully useful for invaders of all level ranges, not just low level invaders. And then there's also maybe one of the more obscure memory stones is the one that demi-human Queen Maggie drops, and here's just a kind of an easy way to take on this boss. I ran out of volcano pots here pretty early. I probably could have had more crafted to start this encounter, but again, I've got Carrion Retaliation with me that I can use. I've got Chilling Mist on my weapon, so I'm able to proc some damage there with the Frostbite status effect, and it's a pretty straightforward boss fight. So again, All of these are hopefully things that you as a fellow invader are going to be capable of doing. I certainly believe that you can. The next thing that I wanted to show are actually three tools that are pretty useful for a low-level invader, for invaders of all ranges. The first is the Serpent God's Curved Sword. That's going to give you HP regen when the host or their phantoms take out any enemies in the world. And then there's also the Sacrificial Axe, which is going to do the same thing, but for your FP. The third tool, which I don't really scroll up to show in this clip, is the Icon Shield, and that's going to give you some static HP regen when you have it equipped. It is quite heavy, but I think it gives you about 5 HP regen per second, which is pretty useful, again, especially as a low-level invader. So these are three tools that I like to have on most of my invader builds. And then in the background, I'm kind of showing where you can pick each of these up. So the first one, the Sacrificial Axe, was down there in the Weeping Peninsula. You have to kill the Deathrite bird to get that one. The second one is the Serpent God's Curved Sword, which you can get from the Rune-strewn Precipice. And then the Icon Shield you can get from the Woodfolk Ruins in the Altus Plateau. So those are the map locations for each of those. Now I wanted to show the fight against the Black Knife Assassin, which is at the Sage's Cave when you first get to the Altus Plateau. At the same site of grace where I fought the Bell-bearing Hunter earlier in the video, there's a merchant there, and he will sell you the Sentry's Torch. You don't actually have to have the stat requirements to use the torch, and you don't even have to have it equipped in your hand. Just have it equipped to your offhand, and you can put it on your back, and it'll not only show you all of the secret, like the illusory walls throughout the Sage's Cave, but it'll also make the Black Knife Assassin visible for your fight. And then again, I'm using Stormhawk Dean there to help me out, and I'm able to get the Concealing Veil, which is going to give us some stealth as an invader. I also went and grabbed the Albinauric Mask. If you want to be a cute invader, definitely recommend the Albinauric Mask, but this is also going to give us some Arcane. I think you get 4 points of Arcane for equipping this helmet, and it does reduce the amount that you heal from your Estus flasks, but it will, your Crimson Tears flask, and but that will give you access to, if you are using a low-level invader like I am here, who hasn't invested in the Arcane stat, if I wanted to, I could use that helmet, and it would give me enough Arcane so that I could use the Dragon's Communion Seal, which is a weightless seal. And having a weightless seal sometimes is can be really efficient for better optimizing your equip load for different weapons, maybe using a shield or heavier armor, whatever it might be, since all of the seals are either 1.5 units of weight or weightless. It's nice to have that as an option. Now, I'm not specifically using it on this character, but I figured that would be a nice tip to pass along if you were trying to do something of the sort. Here we took on Morgot, the fight in Lanedale. And in the previous video I mentioned that if you've let Dung Eater out of his cell, then you can summon him for the fight against Moog the Omen down in the sewers. But you can also apparently use him to help you with Morgot. So I summoned Melina, I summoned Dung Eater, I have Stormhawk Dean fighting by my side, and the 4 of us can take on this boss together. And it made it pretty doable as a low-level invader. Now that's going to give us access to the Giant's mountaintops. Now, this build was already this invader specifically, was already kind of a bit of a twink, just because I've got full flasks. I've got 14 flasks at my disposal they were up to +10, now they're going to be up to +12. I had 4 talisman pouches. I had some equipment that wasn't accessible to the early parts of the game, so I would consider it a twink build. I don't think that it's necessarily the most toxic or evil twink build. I'm going out and I'm gathering all of the things that I'm using myself rather than having like a friend drop them for me, or using something like Cheat Engine, or scumming my saves, or anything like that. But again, like, somebody might look at this and say this is a twink build, and I wouldn't be able to say that it's not. So with that said, going to the Giant's Mountaintops, like I mentioned, it's going to give me my flasks up to plus 12. It's also going to give me access to the lightning ballista bolts at the vendor that's there, and then we can also take on the Erd Tree avatars that are up here, and using the volcano pots, we're able to make, you know, pretty easy work of this boss fight that would otherwise be relatively challenging for, you know, for a lot of Tarnished. And with that in mind, I'm going to talk a little bit about our wondrous physic. Oh, we can also go and grab the Crimson Whirl bubble tier, so I'll kind of show where that's at, where you can pick that up. And at this point, I've gathered all of the possible physic tiers, except for the one that's in the consecrated snowfield. I haven't reached that area yet, but having all of these different combinations at my disposal is pretty useful. My preference is to use the Opaline Hard tier paired with the Crimson Bubble tier, especially if I'm going against phantoms that I know are higher level than me, as well as the fact that I'm using the Radagon Soar Seal with this build. Having access to the Opaline Hard tier is going to give me some more damage resistance, and the Crimson Bubble tier is going to regen my health if I get knocked down to a certain threshold. So that's my preferred combination. There's also if you want to pair the Leaden Hard tier and the Crimson Whirl Bubble tier, that's a really great combination. For like 10 seconds, you have the ability to heal off of elemental damage, and you have a lot of poise. There's also the different tiers that'll give you, you know, a boost to your elemental damage types, or give you a boost to your attribute stats. You could put the two together that give you half of your health back, which would give you a full heal. There's also the one that gives you faster stamina regen, or even using the one that'll give you an HP regen. So just a lot of good combinations with those. Definitely worth going out and grabbing. In that last clip there, as I was speaking, you could see in the background I went and I grabbed the Crimson Seed Talisman. That's going to give you an extra 20% when you use your healing flask, if you need it. Again, as a low-level invader with fully upgraded flasks, I don't necessarily need that extra added boost, but it might come in handy. It makes your build a little bit more efficient when it comes to healing, and if you're a higher-level invader, it could be really useful for you. I wanted to do some of Ranni's quest, so I went and I took on Radahn at the Radahn Festival, and then I went through Nokron to get the Finger Slayer blade, so that Ranni would give me the I can't think of what it's called at the moment, but it flips the tower, the Carrion Study Hall, it flips it over so that you can access the top of the tower, where you can pick up the Stargazer heirloom, which will give you +5 to your intelligence stat. Again, really useful as a low-level invader. It's also one of the reasons that I suggested starting with the Vagabond starting class in the previous video, because it'll start you with 9 points in your intelligence stat, and then adding 5 to that would put you at 14. 14 intelligence will give you access to Night Maiden's Mist, which is a really great spell for an invader. It'll also give you access to spells like Carrion Slicer and Swift Glintstone's Shard. I think you can also cast the Magic Glint Blade spell, which is the one that leaves a lingering projectile that targets an enemy after a few seconds. That might be really useful for you as well. And then I prefer to use the Staff of Loss, which you can get from Celia, Town of Sorcery. It's got a 2.5 units of weight for your equip load, which is pretty manageable. If you can like offhand a shield, then you can just easily switch to a staff and equip this talisman, and then that'll give you access to a few really useful utility spells. So that kind of wraps up some of the tips that I had for this video. The last few minutes here are just going to be me showing 2 very different invasions to kind of give you an idea of how the build that I've put together works, as well as kind of show what some of the low-level invasions are like and maybe what you could expect. So at this point, if you wanted to sign off, I would not hold that against you. I really appreciate you for being here. Hopefully you got a little something out of this video for putting together an invader, and thank you so much. So in this first invasion, we've got 3 guys, and I'm noticing, of course, we've got one who has got Rivers of Blood. Rivers of Blood's a really good weapon. If it wasn't good, people wouldn't use it as much as they do. But it also kind of, sometimes it tricks the player into thinking that they're better than they are. This Phantom, for example, that was the only thing that he knew to do, was to press the L2 button to use his Ash of War Corpse Piler, and he's probably deleted 100 invaders with that move. But he wasn't, quite on top of it today, and I was able to take him out with my Chilling Mist and my Lordsworn Straightsword, and he was level 385. He or she. I say he a lot. I should probably say they more often. Either way, they were level 385, and so as an invader who's level 25 with +3 weapons, I just got a bunch of runes from taking out that Phantom. And the next invasion here is kind of the opposite of that. I get into the invasion and I see that the character's name is Gorgonzola. I think that that's a great name, and so I'm going to go check things out. I see that they're fighting some of the exiled soldiers, and then I also notice that his Phantom's name is Roquefort, or Roquefort. I don't know specifically how to pronounce it, but it's another kind of cheese. So we've got Gorgonzola and Roquefort. You get it. And I said, you know what? These are cool dudes, and I can kind of get a feel that, like, when he hits me, he's not an over-leveled Phantom. There's probably just 2 people having a good time with their fun characters. So I say, hey, okay, you know what? I'm gonna drop you a Warming Stone, because it seems like the Phantom didn't have any healing flasks at that point. I'll let him take on the little enemy that's gonna go fight them, and I drink my flask to top myself off. And then I make the decision that I'm not going to heal during this encounter. I'm just going to try to fight these 2 guys. If I win, I win. If they beat me, they beat me. That's not, at the end of the day, I'm not going to, quit my game if I lose an invasion to 2 people who are just playing through the game. If this was a high-level Phantom who was spamming something like Rivers of Blood, then maybe I would have engaged differently during this invasion. But I said, you know what, this is how I'm choosing to play it, and that's how I like to play the game sometimes. I encourage you to play the game how you like to play the game. I don't encourage people to go out and be bullies or, beat up on these hosts that are just trying to play the game, and sometimes I myself can get caught up in my own, diagnosis of Spiteful's disease. But sometimes you just have to, challenge yourself. This whole entire, this whole project has really been challenging myself. I've gotten really far throughout the course of Elden Ring with this character who is low level, who's using the Radigan's Source Seal, so I don't have a lot of damage negation, and who has low upgraded weapons, but I was able to get to the Giant's Mountaintops with this character. And it's like, yeah, that's awesome. So, challenge yourself. That's how we get better. GG to Gorgonzola and Roquefort. And GG to you, gamer. Thank you so very much for being here. I have been and always will be Kubz. Peace and love, gamers.